we've got the amplifier chassis on the bench. It's a wooden chassis, which people today may find a bit bizarre, but it is a wooden chassis. And unlike the later ones, like I was doing the 2412, it's easy to get to both sides of the printed circuit board, as you will see when I've taken this back panel off. So there's your top side of the amplifier, and then the underside. Don't have to take the printed circuit board away from the chassis because it's been thought through well. I would say that the reason they put the metal chassis over the entire bottom in the later models is to stop hammering. So even back in the late 60s, these black capacitors were not the most reliable. And I'm not saying this, it wasn't like HMV were trying to rip people off. It's the best there was at the time. But time has moved on, and they're TCC. These those dreadful Hunts ones. These black ones are atrocious. So that's what Mr. Chippy will be doing. We've got a power supply with a regulated part there. So part of the regulation circuit has one of those nasty black capacitors in it. So all these will be changed, including the large electrolytic there. So that's where we are. The AD1, AD162, did I say that right? AD161, AD162. We can see that the sleeving is starting to shrink down from this one, and chances are that's knackered. So there we go. So that's where we're going to leave it at the moment, and we'll pick this up with Mr. Chippy on the electronics, unless I do the electronics. Depends what the time's like. So we've only got like 18 hours left to have this done. Okay, we're going to start some of this service work with me. So we're going to start by changing the capacitors on the voltage regulator board. So I'll just get on with that. We made up this kit of parts as I showed you earlier, and hopefully we'll have this done in 20 minutes. Okay, so I've done all these. Mr. C was otherwise occupied. So I've changed all these on the main board, and we've changed the main smoothing electrolytic there, and the two on the power supply regulator board. The capacitor there was totally open circuit. I've tested most of the others, and they're nearly all reading high, which is indicative of imminent failure. So there we go. So I've put a new mains plug on with shrouded pins, 3 amp fuse, and it's time to plug it in. I'll just make sure the product's off. It is. We need to connect the speakers. So as ever with these products, we've got some speakers under the bench. This is Mr. Chippy's bench, and he does guitar amplifiers. And I'll just get some crocodile clip leads, and I will connect these up. So my right hand channel, I don't know which channel's which. So the blue wire is common. So I'll put that to there. And the white wire goes to the yellow. The white we'll put to that yellow wire, which we'll put to there. And then on the other channel, we'll start by finding the lead. And moving the camcorder. So once again we'll put that to the grey wire. I've made a note of which colour goes to which point, because we're going to unsolder those and then resolder where I've chopped them off. Probably get that on there and onto there. So it's time to switch on. Make sure the volume's down. Got a switch on thump. I've now got a hum, which is great. So right, nothing. Okay, Switch to mono. Nothing. Right, let's see what's happening. Okay, something doesn't seem to be right on the left hand channel. What we'll do is we'll plug my handy realistic cassette deck into the input channel and we'll see whether it plays. So the difficulty when you haven't got a radio is you need some kind of input. So switch it on, switch to tape, see what happens. Well, that's working, so we're going to have to inject a signal into this, because if I touch right, I don't know. You know what? It could simply be that the switch is dirty. I think we'll tentatively, what I don't want to do is to put it back together and then we've got to start stripping it apart again. But as far as I'm concerned, that sounds excellent. Especially with it to tape. You haven't got a balance control on this model, which so I'm going to leave that on test and we'll come back to it in half an hour. Okay, so we'll stop the tape. That's been on for about 90 minutes. The gentleman's come for his WEM radio, his Y radiogram. So that's gone. So we'll unplug that, and what we're going to do is, I'll just move this camcorder around. What I've done is to put a signal generator here on the bench, and we're going to connect that to this input, because I want to make sure that we've got something equal, and I'm not sure that it is right. So we know the amplifier is working at line level, but is it working at this level? So switch on. We've got 400 Hertz there, and you can hear that's coming through fine. Bit of noise on that volume control. We can deal with that. So, is it coming through on the other channel? No, it's not. So we've got a problem with the preamp. So I suspected there was something amiss. Let's increase the signal. Just make sure it isn't a dodgy switch. So go back to the volume level, right hand channel. Switching to mono, it's coming through the left hand speaker. Back to stereo, it's only coming through the right hand speaker, of course. And then connect to that channel, absolutely nothing. Switch to mono, absolutely nothing. So we have got a fault, as I suspected. That's why we got the signal generator out. So let's see where that wire goes. So I'll do a bit of fault finding and we'll get back to you. Rolling on a few days, we have ordered another transistor for this position. Pasted inside the cabinet was an equivalence chart, and it tells us that VT13 is in fact a BFY52. Funnily enough, I thought it was. I know it looks like one because it's in a TO5 case, but of course it could be anything. So BFY52 it is. It's an SGS, so it's a Thomson thing, and it's a 26928. No, it's not. That must be a date code. It's a U3847-3. U3847-3. So we will change both of them, but initially we'll just change this one, just to prove that the thing does actually work. So here they are, new old stock. Well, I'm not sure where we got to when the memory card ran out of the camcorder, but nevertheless we were putting it back together. We changed the transistor, it was working on both channels. I dismantled the rotary switch, which is not a part you're supposed to be dismantling, but what else can you do to try and restore reliable operation? We'd had migration of the input wire from the pickup from the blue wire, which was the left hand channel, I think it was. That was causing an intermittent. We've got the contacts inside the switch causing an intermittent on the left hand channel. On the right hand channel we had that transistor blow. So just before I put the front panel back on, because it's been in a smoking household at some time in its life, it's got a nasty fur around the nuts of the controls here. So just make sure you can see what I can see. I've brought my vacuum cleaner, one of them, out of the new chapel we've had built. And of course it has to be a Henry, so if you're in the UK you have to have a Henry vacuum cleaner. And one of the wonderful things about Pneumatic, who make them, Pneumatic International, spelled N-U-Matic, is that all parts are available for all vacuums they've ever made. Now we have a cordless one of these, and this isn't it. So I'm going to have to go and plug this in. How frustrating. I'm not quite sure where we've put the cordless one. Right, whether or not they're both connected still, let's just see whether it's still working. So there's our tone generator. Yeah, both channels are still working. This was on a test for about 8 hours. So I'm satisfied this can go back in the cabinet. I'll tell you what, we'll try and play some music through it. That's from the realistic cassette player which I've got there, plugged in through the DIN socket, and there's 4 tapes selected. So fidelity of that's fine, tone controls work fine. Hope the copyright police don't do that. So all that needs to happen now is we need to put the front panel back on, and as a courtesy, because I've had to have that off, I may as well clean the controls. Okay, so one of the things the customer mentioned is the only way we could get the dents out of the knobs, and you have to bear in mind this is 50 years old, but possibly, but I'm not doing it to his. So there is a dent in the, see if we can get that in the light, there's a dent there and a dent there on that knob. I'll tell you what, we'll put that on there at the end. I don't know which order they came out in, but they're all the same. Subject to getting it in the right position. There we go. So to answer that, how would you do it? Well, it's an aluminium cover on a plastic knob. So what you'd have to do is to remove the plastic cover from the knob. Now, there's been times when we've put these through our dishwasher, especially when they've been my own product, and there's another one with a dent, and the glue's given way and the plastic has readily pulled off. So what you could do is you could press that out. You'd have to be very careful with probably with a plastic tool. Bearing in mind we're involved in church pipe organ restoration, I think we could do it, but I'm not going to do it on his and make it worse. And then the trouble then is that when you've done that, you've got to glue the covers back on when the knobs are actually back on the product, because you need to know where the pointers are going to be. So to be honest, he's very lucky that the knobs are all there. He's also very lucky that the knobs aren't broken, and that does not want to go in that position. So the fact it's 50 years old and some dents in it, well, you know, I wouldn't be something that, yeah, 3 of them have got dents. I don't know how you do that. You'd have to really clonk it, wouldn't you? But nevertheless, it's not something we're going to do. It's not like I've got an endless supply of replacement knobs. The only way out of it is to buy another product the same and pinch the knobs off it. I'm not sure why that isn't wanting to go in. So there we are, we're back in working order. It's got all the knobs back on. I'm just going to take the old wires off this, where we chopped the speaker wires off. I've made a note of what colour goes to what pin. This is one of the pains with this particular version and the other earlier ones. The fact that they're not on plugs and sockets. You could actually cut these a bit more generously and put them on chock blocks. You know, it might make it easier for people in the future. But you can't do that with the pickup lead. You are going to have to cut that, redress it and resolder it back on. You can't be putting pickup leads in chock blocks, I can assure you. So that's one off. That's 2 off. And this looks fun because you've got a wire wrapped red wire as well. Which we managed not to disturb. It's a bit bent though. There we go. So that's ready to go back in the cabinet. Did we put a new plug on it? Yes, we did. So this is where part 2 will end. The amplifier's finished, and part 3 we'll be putting it back in the cabinet, connecting it all back up internally, and then testing it, and hopefully finding a record that the copyright police won't block the audio from. So thank you for watching part 2 of the HMV Stereomaster 2400 from the 1968-1969 era, and part 3 will hopefully be in a few days.